What's the word, Harrisburg? My name is Matt Maisel. Our guest right now is the head of Capital Rebirth here in Harrisburg, Mikell Simpson, decked out in his Virginia gear. Wahoo wah.
Absolutely.
It kills me to say that, by the way. I'm a Syracuse guy.
Okay.
So,
okay. I get it.
Although when you were in school, you were playing football at UVA, 05 to 10, 05, 09. I mean, that was before Syracuse and UVA crossed paths.
Yeah.
When
we played them, my redshirt freshman year, it was up there, but I didn't travel. But
That's
we did
right,
play
right.
once. Yep.
Yes, I remember that game.
Yep.
Yeah, so and my brother-in-law is a Who. So
oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
well,
but that's
same
okay.
Color scheme.
Same color scheme. It makes buying gifts easy.
Absolutely.
That's for sure. And obviously I gotta see Syracuse and Virginia, they don't necessarily have, it's not a rivalry.
No.
So
now if Syracuse starts to become good in basketball like they once were, I can see, because Virginia has been, the top of the ACC in that sport. I can see that.
When you're not losing early in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah. And we have a kid, Chance, Wesley, who just transferred from Auburn to Syracuse.
That's right.
As well. So
Chance Westry.
Yeah. So, now I have a reason to watch Syracuse and root for him a little bit on the side.
I'm excited. I'm confident we're doing what we need to be doing in terms of Red Autry, you're replacing Jim Boeheim, doing what he needs to do in terms of the transfer portal.
Yeah.
Like they've got 4 transfers already coming in this year because that's what you got to do in the current day and age.
The new game.
So,
transfer and pay.
I want to talk about your football career in a little bit because it's important in terms of how it kind of led to Capital Rebirth and coming back to Harrisburg. But for people that are watching this and don't know anything about Capital Rebirth, what is it?
Capital Rebirth is a nonprofit focused in Harrisburg. Our 3 cores is education, health and wellness, entertainment, and we try to focus our events and workshops around those 3.
When did this all kind of come about for you?
So, got to kind of dive into football a little bit to kind of tell the story. So coming out of college, I signed with the Cincinnati Bengals. During the physical at the NFL, it's a lot more intense. It was about 7 hours long. And during that physical, they discovered that I had spinal stenosis and bone spurs on my spine, which meant the vertebrae are too close and some were actually chipped. So the chances of me being paralyzed were extremely high, so I had to stop playing ball the same day I signed an NFL contract. I was forced to go home. That forced me into a major depression, suicidal, not knowing what my next move was. And then during the midst of that, the only thing that I can think of that really made me happy and I had a passion doing was working with kids. So even like when I was a teenager, I worked for the Harrisburg Parks and Recs. I would volunteer in college with the local elementary schools to kind of help the teachers and whatnot. And just being a football player, you're naturally a role model to kids. So with that mindset at that time, I decided that a kid would probably be the only thing that would save me. So I had my daughter, Miley Simpson. So the capital in Capital Rebirth comes from Harrisburg, of course, being the capital of Pennsylvania. And the rebirth comes from her birth, giving me a new purpose and passion in life. So the rebirth stands for respect earned by intelligence, resilience, truth, and humanity. So like I said, she is the savior to my life. And because, she was born, it made me want to figure out ways to better this community because she would be born in this community and raised in this community. So I took the initiative to start a nonprofit. Sports was the first thing out the gate that we did because obviously that's up my realm. So we started off with alumni basketball tournaments, and it was successful. We had over 2,000 people attend. We had Harrisburg play still in that first year. And then we kind of took a dip on Capital Rebirth for about 4 or 5 years, took a hiatus, just trying to get my mental together because 2011, my daughter was born. 2012, the first time I introduced Capital Rebirth. Well, I wasn't fully healed to be able to give this organization.
Physically and mentally.
Mentally, absolutely. I was, like, when I turned on football, August, like,
wow,
I'm depressed. April 29th.
Are you still that way?
Yes. April 29th just passed. That was the day that I flew out to Cincinnati. I will remember that day for the rest of my life, from start to finish. That was the day I flew out to Cincinnati, and that was the day that they told me I could never play again. So, like, the 29th in August is very emotional times for me, especially seeing guys that I played with still playing, some of the guys coaching now. So, like, just the game, it kind of – I miss it, put it that way.
Because you're still young.
Yes, yes, yes. And like I said, physically, I was able to do it. Everything. It wasn't, my ability that stopped me from, playing at the NFL level. It was a injury that I had no knowledge of.
So forgive me because I mean I'm going to get into this, and if it gets too deep, I want you to tell me.
No.
But I know you've talked about this before. I know you're open about it. I know that's part of the healing process.
Absolutely.
Harrisburg High standout, football wise. Go to University of Virginia, one of the best programs, nationally ranked, especially when you were there in the late part of the early decade, and Gator Bowl MVP. I mean, just where were you meant as a football player? Where were you mentally knowing, hey, I can bust off a 90-yard touchdown run. I can be Gator Bowl MVP. I'm playing at the top of one of the best conferences in America with one of the best teams that's there. What's your mental status at the time in terms of where you are on a trajectory towards?
Yeah. So I was always going to use football as my tool to get back to the community. Harrisburg is a place that I love. When you talk about development and growth, this is where it came from. These are the same schools I went to, the community, the parks, everything. Harrisburg raised me. So I was always thinking, hey, get to the NFL, then you can use your money and resources to try to solve all the issues that you see in Harrisburg, and you can start to build that team to kind of go in there, infiltrate, and fix these issues. Because at the end of the day, I work with hundreds of kids in the city. And like I said, just going to school with them, I knew opportunities weren't granted to a lot of kids. So just those kids being able to get exposure to different things and different career paths and different cities and different views on stuff, that's ultimately what helped me. And I looked at some of my peers growing up and I realized they didn't have that. So that was the reason that stopped a lot of them. And you look at kids today, it's the same obstacles that they face.
But you're thinking at the time, I'm going to make the league.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm going to get that money. I'm going to come home and I'm going to make things better here, but I'm going to be the next Shady McCoy. I'm going to be the next Ricky Waters. I'm going to be the next great Harrisburg running back.
Well, it's funny you say that. So LaShawn McCoy is one of my good friends as well.
Sure.
He was a year behind me. So just seeing the success that he had in college, I knew that I could do it. Seeing the success that he had in the pros, I know he's better than me, but I'm not that much far behind him where I can't be in the league. Not saying that, I may have went on not to be an NFL star running back, but I could have been on a roster. Put it that way. And that's all you can ask for at the end of the day. You make a roster, the chips may fall where they may fall, but ultimately you're there, you have the resources, you have the funding.
Was it the shoulder injury that kind of started that?
No, so the shoulder was the collarbone. So I broke that. I'm healed from that. Like I said, the spinal was something that nobody seen coming.
That just showed up in a physical.
Yeah, so college physicals are about hour and a half. It's just your regular ones. Well, the NFL, I remember arriving at Cincinnati at 12 o'clock, and x-rays and MRIs started at 12:30. I didn't end until 6:30. So even with the difference in the urine samples at the NFL versus the college you just give it. Well, in NFL, there was a guy standing on both sides of me, and I had to give it in the samples in two different cups. So it wasn't, no tricks or no trades. The NFL, they went into dental, seeing how your mouth was. I'm like, what does this have to do with, playing football?
Sure.
But I understand at that point, it's a huge investment for these teams to put in an individual. And if you put them out on a field and they're not, healthy, or you've seen an injury show up and you ignore it and this person goes out, and can severely get paralyzed, then they have a bigger problem.
So this is 2010 at this point.
Yes.
So you mentioned obviously not drafted. Was that how? And I'm asking this because I know we just got done with the NFL draft, and you hear a lot of stories about how people are waiting by the phone, and that moment that hits where you realize you're not going to get that phone call. What does that do for you then? Because I imagine that you were thinking, okay, maybe I'll get a call on the third day, one of the late rounds, and find my way into a camp.
So I'm an honest person.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting to get drafted. I was expecting to go free agent.
Okay.
And
which a lot of people want.
I was going to say, I honestly preferred it that way because now you can choose the right situation. So I remember the draft ended. It was at my mother's house right up on 6th Street off of 6th and Raleigh. And I was in the parking lot. Phone rang, my agent. There were about 4 or 5 teams that had offers within literally a minute of the draft closing. So like I knew that I can play. I knew people had interest in me. Now college didn't go fully the way I expected, but I always looked at myself when I played a game, whether it was high school and college, and I got like a true running back's touches, about 15. I was averaging almost 170 and 2 touchdowns in college. So like I would look at that situation like sometimes maybe the coaches didn't use me as I thought they should, but when I looked at the NFL, there's money on the table. So like if you look at my best year in college, the next year, the first game against USC, I didn't even start. I was on the bench. Guy came back from injury, and he was in the plug. But if you look at the NFL, if you have a season like I had that year, carrying, like you said, MVP of the Gator Bowl, longest touchdown run, and still to this day in NCAA history, I'm either going to get picked up in free agency or they're going to actually play me a lot more at this next level because money's involved,
and
right?
You're playing behind a guy in Cedric Pierman who did make the league and did have a career.
Yes, he did. And he was actually with the Cincinnati Bengals.
That's right. That's right.
He was with the Cincinnati Bengals. So that was a funny story. And like I always said to myself, I love Cedric, great teammate. But I'm like, I think I can get you.
Yeah.
You know, I think I can get you. So like, no lie, to be honest, when I walked in the Cincinnati locker room, I forget his name at the time. He had dreads, but he was the backup running back. When I walked past his locker, I looked at him and I said, it's over. Like I had a different mindset going into the NFL because it was a clean slate, new coaches. Coach Anderson is actually the running back coach. He's from Harrisburg. So like now I had someone in my corner to at least give me a chance to show what I can do on the field. And that's all I ever wanted. You know, and I let my, ability take over from there. And then I looked at today's game and how the game was evolving where running backs were being used out the backfield as receivers. Right. I think that was one of my biggest strengths. I can line up. I can run every route in the book. You know, even in college, at some point I played wide receiver.
Right.
So, like, to me, the NFL was like the golden gate where I can display all my talents running and receiving.
Get you out in space, you're going to make a play.
Absolutely. So, like, I didn't expect the draft call, and I was okay with that. I was just like, let me get into camp, and I can take it from there.
And then you don't even get to camp.
Nope. Got my uniform, got my cleats, got my number.
Got the picture. You could you could type in your name right now, and the first picture that comes up is you
Cincinnati
in a
Bengals
Cincinnati
uniform.
Bengal uniform.
And a lot of people don't know Kenny Watson's a Harrisburg alumni as well, and he wore 33 for the Bengals. But that's the number that they gave me. And that's the person who I talked to when I got to Cincinnati. I went to meet with him later that night, and kind of catch up and get a feel for, the city of Cincinnati. But like I said, God had other plans.
So what happened you obviously, for some people that dream dies over the course of time. For you, that dream died in an instant. And that's what kind of put you in that mode of depression.
Absolutely. Because I didn't know my next step. My next step was, hey, I'm going to camp. Season's around the corner. I'm preparing for something. And, financially, I'm able to take care of myself, able to help some of my family members. And none of that happened. And people don't realize if you don't pass the physical, you don't get a penny. So, like, your signing bonus, any other money, you don't see any of that money. So, like, a lot of times people ask me, well, how much was your signing bonus? At least you got that. No, they don't deposit that until you've passed the physical.
How long did it take you to kind of get on your feet once you moved back home?
Well, I started working my first job as a TSS. That was in October. So the draft obviously happened in April, and that was October. But that entire summer, literally, I'm back and forth to Miami, Atlanta, New York, just trying to party and take my mind off of reality, what happened.
So that your depression started to manifest in terms of like partying. And things like that.
Yeah, I'm talking 7 days a week at this point. Like, there wasn't no night that I wasn't out drinking and partying because, like, I didn't want to face reality. And I remember coming home from the Bengals that night. I slept in my car on the side of the road, like on the side of Emerald Street, because the disappointment that I had, because I was, like I said, I wanted to take care of my family. I want to take care of my city. Now I'm home. Now I have to answer all these questions the next day. So I didn't want to go in and face my father. I didn't want to go in and face my mom because to me, I took it as I failed them. So I remember going to Italian Lake. I sat up there till about 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. I got back around 11:30 that night. Went up to Italian Lake, sat a few hours, just kind of processing it. And then I went and parked my car on the side of Emerald Street and went to sleep in my car. And then that morning, I finally kind of went in and had to face reality. And that was a very tough pill to swallow. But like I said, it led to me having the best blessing in my life, which was my daughter.
Did you ever consider suicide in any of this?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There were nights that drinking, I'm talking about like over drinking, like my limits I knew were certain points, but it's just like, you know what? Who cares? Like, what am I living for anyway? You know what I mean? And I'm always questioned, they always say, the famous saying was, God has other plans. God has something in store. I'm like, well, I've been working at this dream since 5 years old. I've dodged a lot of, bullets in the streets where people get caught up. Our school system, Harrisburg, isn't the best, and I was able to make it from that school district and go to the #1 public university in the country and make it there. That a big adjustment. So I'm like, what was all of this for? At that point, I couldn't see, the future, obviously. But at that point, I was questioning God. I was questioning my purpose in life. I was literally questioning everything. Like, why did this happen to me?
And then you had your daughter, and you said what was it about that moment? And speaking, dad to dad, father to father here, girl dad to girl dad.
Yeah.
What was it about the moment that just kind of clicked for you, that kind of turned? Was it an instant thing? Was it
absolutely.
Okay.
It was responsibility. Somebody's dependent on me now. Before, I was dependent on myself. Like, so if I wanted to go out and drink, guess who had to deal with those consequences? Me. Not hurting nobody. But if I was to say, you know what? I'm going to keep partying while I have this child. Guess who has those consequences? My daughter. Like, I went almost 10 years without even drinking once I had my daughter. Like, I was...
Not even a casual drink or anything like that?
No. Like, that was my purpose. And I had my daughter, Friday and Monday. So, like, during those times, those are your going out times. I wasn't calling my sisters and my mom, hey, can you babysit my daughter? Hey, can you... No. Like, I take fatherhood very seriously. Like, when it comes to diapers in those times, didn't ask nobody. Changing when she was sick, making bottles, any of that, like hair, I did all that.
Why didn't you ask for any help during that time?
Because I'm 100% her father, so that is my responsibility. If I can take, and I've always viewed, if I can take care of myself, why can't I take care of another human? It's not, to me, it's not that difficult. It's just what changed in parenting was I no longer was the first option. So when it was time to take a shower, I had to make sure my daughter was showered first. When it was time to eat, I make sure she ate first. When it was time to dig in the pocket and go buy clothes or whatever, I made sure she had hers first. And whatever was left for me, still to this day, is left for me.
Absolutely.
So it was very instant. And like I said, I knew that having a child was literally, to me at the time, the only thing that can get me on a path to get my life back in order. Because if I didn't have a child, I'm going to be honest, I don't know where my life would be. I don't know if I would be alive. Because that was, like I said, that was a tough pill to swallow.
Is she still your only child?
Yes.
And what, I guess she's probably 10, 11?
She's 11 now.
11 years old now.
5th grade. Yep.
Becoming a little girl.
Yeah.
A little older than a little girl, but.
Developing her own personality, her own friends, and her own schedule. And like, I love it though, because I don't know any other greater feeling. Like I said, even when I look at my greatest moments in sports, it does not even compare remotely to just seeing a report card your daughter has all A's.
Capital Rebirth, when that was kind of born out of your daughter's birth and how that saved you, where was it then? Because I know you said there was a couple year hiatus. So where was it then compared to what it has since become?
Oh, like I said, back then it was just, we did the alumni basketball game, we did a football, cheerleading, band camp, and that was it. Like, sports stopped it. Now, fast forward a couple years, different experiences, different jobs, different people, a lot of more growth within myself, a lot more confidence with myself. That's when you start to see education be the main focus of Capital Rebirth. That's when you've seen health and wellness be a big concern for Capital Rebirth. And now our sports, kind of got pushed to the end. So a lot of people may not know, some may know, William Penn was our goal. So we tried to purchase William Penn. We wanted to bring the Votech back. So, like, to me, if we want to save this city, we want to decrease the crime, the poverty, the education system, it's two sides of the coin. We have to take care of the adults, and we have to take care of the kids. So that facility was going to offer career paths, classrooms, and workshops for the kids as well as the adults. Because now, a lot of people in our community, They have, run-ins with the law, so they can't get these jobs where they provide financial stability. And that's, to me, that's the key to, a great community, right? So now we have people who can go get certified in electric and plumbing and drywall and, these type of things. Now they're making this money. Now they're financially solidified because you talk to a lot of people in the streets, they don't really want to be in the streets. It's too much of a risk. It's too much of a stress. You don't know too many obstacles to deal with, right? So now you provide that stability. While on the other side, these kids are learning the same kind of tools and skills that they can use once they become adults. Like, that was our goal. So, like I said, long-term, Capital Rebirth definitely wants a facility where we can run our programming year-round. But yeah, it's definitely evolved. We've become a lot more active in the community, just not our events. We show up to other people's events. And just the networking. I wouldn't imagine some of the rooms that I'm in right now, to be honest. Even a couple years ago, which was the shocking, Oprah Winfrey, contacted me and wanted to do an interview on voting, and like before, I didn't care about voting. It wasn't until 2017 when they marched to the University of Virginia and the lady died and Donald Trump got on TV and he was saying, it's good people on both sides. And I'm like, well, a lady lost her life. How can we say both sides are good? So that sparked the interest in, the government, politics, and how those things work.
You mentioned that, and my brother, I remember when that happened, I was actually with my brother-in-law, who I mentioned is a fellow UVA grad. And like that was, not Charlottesville, not my school. No, you don't do that here. And kind of what that moment meant for a lot of people kind of moving forward. So it's interesting that you mentioned that. The focus with Capital Rebirth, obviously, giving kids an outlet, a safe outlet for what? For comfort, for guidance, for things like that?
Absolutely. And just getting them out the house. In today's age, kids, they have a thing with video games. They have a thing with just kind of staying in the house, being on their phones or whatnot. So just getting them outside, letting them play sports. And like, if you come to any of our sporting events with kids, I preach fun. I don't care about winning. I don't care about losing. I don't care if a kid can't make a shot. I don't care if they can't catch the ball. That kid is going to play. That kid is going to be encouraged. We don't care, about winning and losing at this age. It's just get out the house, meet some friends, and it's unique with our kids' sporting events, and just events in general. The range that we have, like currently we have our flag football league, which is our third week tomorrow. We have kids ranging from Middletown to Mechanicsburg to Hershey, to Palmyra. Like kids are coming from all over. So that's given our city kids an opportunity, and kids from outside the city, to kind of intertwine with each other. Because I know growing up, in Harrisburg, we didn't really have experiences with people outside of the city. Especially sports. It was, you play with your friends, you play with people on the hill, people on the south side, people in private, but that was kind of it. Now these kids are getting exposed to so many things, and I think, I don't believe racism will ever end, but I think the interactions at a young age can kind of bring some of these, stereotypes and myths down about people that once kind of lived.
The platform that you have is kind of, and I look at other well-known football players from the Harrisburg area that have kind of taken that platform and have done something. I mean, I'm talking Gary Gilliam and what he's doing with the bridge, LaShawn with, building, places for people to live.
Absolutely.
And what you're doing now with Capital Rebirth. Is there anything to that with, being a standout football player from the Harrisburg area and using that kind of platform, that notoriety, to kind of give back to the community?
So for me, I can only speak for me, right?
Yeah.
It's the opposite. I don't want people to know I played football. I don't want people to kind of, hey, you were the foot. No, I really want you to know me for what I'm doing with my organization. Like, it pees me off sometimes when you hear about the quotes, be quiet and dribble, or, your sports player, play that. But we're a lot more than that. We actually went to the same universities, and graduated from the universities that all these other successful people have went to. So it's not like when you go to college to play sports, hey, sports are only the thing that no, we're actually in the classroom learning too. So
football's not one and done.
Yeah, so like give us some credit, for us being educated scholars on that side too. So to me, it was not about using my platform. It was always in my heart to help people. Like I said, from teenage years on up to, that is something that is just in my natural DNA, is to help people. I get a joy out of it, right? So to me, I'm like, you know what? I do have all these experiences just from, like I said, just going from Harrisburg to University of Virginia is night and day. From everything you think of, from the economy to the housing to the education, everything is completely different, right? So I knew, I was a little special to be able to kind of have those experiences. I also knew that people did respect my name a little because of the sports background. Now I said I didn't want to use that as, my main stool. I could have named it the Mikell Simpson Foundation, and it would have been a lot more recognizable to people. But now when you see Capital Rebirth, you got to do a little digging. Who's behind this? Oh, okay. Now people can hopefully respect me in a different light, because I don't want to be just labeled as the athlete.
And I'll be honest with you, and this is kind of where I want to wrap it up. Partly because we're out of time, partly because I think this is a good place to wrap it up. Yeah. I will admit this. I consider myself a really big sports fan. Like, I know more about sports than my wife wants me to know, because
I get it.
Before we had this interview, when I reached out to you about doing What's the Word Harrisburg, when I did all this, I only knew you, and I grew up in Harrisburg too. I went to Susquehanna Township.
Okay.
I only knew you as Capital Rebirth guy.
Well, that's good. That's good.
And it wasn't until I was doing my research on Capital Rebirth before we talked that I found, how did I not know this?
Yeah.
So to your point, I think that it's working.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's not a knock against your career, because you had a hell of a career. But what you're doing right now is powerful. Making a difference, and it's a lot more powerful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like I said, you also can tell when people met me or kind of discovered me, because if it's been in this last 5 or 6 years, it's going to be Capital Rebirth.
I didn't meet you until we were on the comedy stage
Yeah, but that was through Capital Rebirth. That was through Capital Rebirth.
Exactly.
So the people who kind of met me beforehand, yes, they know all about the football.
Right.
But now, like, when I meet people, I don't bring it up.
No.
Like, even like kids, I don't. If a kid comes, hey, you played for,
you're just a UVA super fan.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love to wear Virginia gear. And I'll be honest, it eases the conversations. So, like we said, this whole football mystique, it's the same in this new world that I'm kind of circling in, because I am black, because I am from Harrisburg. There are stereotypes that come with it, and not all are good. But when people say, you went to University of Virginia, oh, wow.
Oh, you must be smart.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Like, the whole dynamics of and I see it all the time. Conversation changes, interest change. Oh, wow. I can actually respect you as a person.
You shouldn't have to do that, but I understand where you're coming from.
I get it. Like, there's a lot of things we shouldn't have to do in the world. White, black, Indian, Puerto Rican. Just a lot of things that all races and backgrounds have to deal with. Should we? No. But ultimately, we have to know what cards to play at what times.
Your openness, your honesty, your candor, I cannot thank you more for joining us and having this conversation with us.
No, I appreciate it.
Mikell Simpson, that's the word Harrisburg. Thank you so much. Capital Rebirth, go online. Real quick, I want to give you a chance to plug Capital Rebirth online.
Yeah, we have a website. You can visit www.capitalrebirth.com. We have Instagram, Capital Rebirth 717. We have a Facebook, Capital Rebirth. We have a Twitter, Capital Rebirth 717. Or you could just contact me directly. I'm on all the social media platforms. I'm not one that ignores people. I typically, respond to people no matter what the question is. Trust me, it's not a dumb question. We've seen all questions.
All over the place. Congratulations on your success.
Thank you.
Hopefully to much more moving forward.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Take care, everyone.